liar. You always were a liar.
I had been waiting years for this moment. After countless overtime shifts and sacrifices, I finally purchased my dream property, a beautiful lake cabin tucked away in a serene neighborhood. It was a place I wanted to retire in, a place where I could find peace away from the chaos of city life. I knew there was a homeowners association nearby, but my realtor made it very clear. This property was outside their jurisdiction. No HOA fees, no ridiculous rules about what kind of flowers I could plant. No one telling me how tall my grass could grow. Freedom. The first day I began moving in, the sun was shining, birds chirping, and I felt like life had finally given me a win. That peace lasted all of 30 minutes before I heard the screeching voice that would soon become a nightmare. "Excuse me, excuse me." I turned around and saw her, mid-50s, clutching a clipboard like it was her crown jewel, sunglasses too big for her face, and a smug expression plastered across her mouth. "I'm Karen, president of the HOA. You need to stop what you're doing right now. You can't just move in here without approval from us." I blinked in disbelief. "Approval from you, ma'am? This isn't part of your HOA. I own this land. The deed is right here." Karen scoffed, stepping closer, nose lifted in the air. "Everything within a mile radius of this lake falls under the HOA's purview. That means me. You need to fill out a compliance packet, pay the initiation fee, and sign our covenant agreement." I almost laughed. "I don't owe you a dime. This cabin doesn't fall under your jurisdiction. Check your maps again." Karen didn't like that. Her face turned red. "Oh, don't you get smart with me? You outsiders think you can just waltz in here, ruin the uniformity, and ignore the rules. That's not how it works here. If you don't comply, I'll be forced to escalate this." "Escalate all you want," I replied, hauling another box into the cabin. "I'm not part of your HOA, and I never will be." Karen stormed off, muttering, "Threats?" I shook my head, thinking that would be the end of it, but I underestimated just how far she was willing to go. A few hours later, while I was unpacking, I heard police sirens outside my cabin. 2 officers pulled up, lights flashing. My heart sank, thinking something serious had happened nearby. But no, they parked right in front of my property. One officer stepped out. "Sir, we got a report of trespassing and possible illegal occupation of property." I couldn't believe my ears. "You're kidding me. Karen called you, didn't?" "She," the officer nodded, clearly annoyed. "We're just here to check. Do you have proof of ownership?" "Of course I do." I pulled out the deed from my folder and handed it over. The officer glanced at it, then back at me. "This checks. Hout, you're the rightful owner. Sorry for the inconvenience." Just then, Karen came marching down the street, waving her clipboard like a sword. "Arrest him, he's lying. That cabin is under HOA control and he refused to comply." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, this property isn't part of the HOA. He owns it. You have no authority here." Karen's face contorted. "This is outrageous. You can't just let him move in without following community guidelines." I crossed my arms. "You heard the man. I'm not part of your HOA. Leave me alone." Karen's jaw dropped. She wasn't used to people telling her no, especially not with cops standing there. She turned to the officers again. "You don't understand. He doesn't belong here. We have standards." The officer gave her a look that could cut steel. "Ma'am, if you keep filing false reports, we'll have to cite you. You can't waste police resources like this." Karen huffed, spinning on her heels and stormed away, but I knew she wasn't done. People like her never are. She'd embarrassed herself in front of the police, and in her mind, I was the enemy. I braced myself for whatever nonsense was coming next. What Karen didn't know was that she had just picked a fight she could never win, because behind all the HOA bluster, all the threats and calls to authority, she had no idea who I really was, and just how much power I held over her life. And soon, she was about to find out. A week later, I was settling into my cabin when I noticed something strange. Across the street, at a modest-looking suburban house, movers were hauling furniture out. Curious, I walked over to ask what was happening. One of the movers shrugged. "The landlord gave us the order, said the lease is being reviewed." My eyes widened. I knew exactly whose house this was. Karen's. See, what Karen had no clue about was that her house wasn't fully owned. She was renting it, and her landlord, me. When I purchased the cabin property, The deal came with a small portfolio of rental homes in the area. I hadn't even checked the tenant list yet, but fate clearly had a sense of humor. I immediately contacted my property manager to confirm, and sure enough, Karen's name was on the lease agreement. For years, she had been renting from the very person she thought she could boss around. I couldn't help but laugh. All the time she'd strutted around acting like queen of the HOA, threatening me with fines, screaming about compliance. She had no idea I held the deed to her house. That weekend, I decided it was time for the truth to come out. Karen came, storming over again, this time waving a violation notice she had written up herself. "You left your trash bin out past the approved time. This is a finable offense," I smirked. "Karen, I told you, I'm not under your HOA. Her face twisted. "You think you're above the rules, but you're not. I'll make sure of it. People like you ruin communities." That's when I decided to end it. Calmly, I pulled a document out of my folder and handed it to her. "What's this?" she snapped, snatching the paper. "That's your lease agreement. With my signature at the bottom. I'm your landlord, Karen." For a moment, she didn't move. Her face drained of color. Her hands trembled as she read the page, her eyes darting back and forth like she was hoping the words would magically change. This has to be a mistake," she stammered. "No mistake," I said firmly. "You called the cops on me. You tried to harass me into paying fees I don't owe. You tried to abuse power you never had, all while living in a house that I own. From now on, I suggest you choose your words carefully, because your landlord isn't going to tolerate harassment." Karen stood frozen, clipboard hanging uselessly by her side. For the first time, she had nothing to say. No threats, no screaming. Just silence, I continued, my voice steady. "You wanted power, Karen, but in reality, you've got nothing. You don't control me, you don't control this cabin, and you sure as hell don't control me as your landlord." She turned on her heel and stormed back to her house, but the power dynamic had completely shifted. From that day on, the HOA's threats mysteriously stopped. No more violation notices, no more calls to the police. Karen had been humbled, and every time she saw me on the porch of my cabin, she crossed the street like I was a ghost. It wasn't the revenge I'd planned. I hadn't even known I was in a position of authority over her. But life has a way of working itself out. Karen thought she could scare me, intimidate me, control me. Instead, she learned a lesson she'd never forget. Never mess with someone when you don't know who holds the deed. If you've made it this far, you already know HOA Karen thought she could control everything and everyone around her. She called the cops. She tried to find me. And she even went out of her way to humiliate me in front of the entire neighborhood. But what she didn't know was that she was living in a house that I owned. The same person she tried to crush turned out to be her landlord. And that's a twist you couldn't make up if you tried. Now here's the thing. These HOA stories aren't just about drama or neighborhood conflicts. They're about standing up for yourself when people in power try to walk all over you. They're about knowing your rights, refusing to be bullied, and showing that even the so-called HOA queens can be knocked down when the truth comes out. That's why I need you to stick with us, right here on HOA Karen Stories. Every week, we bring you real, jaw-dropping emotional stories where people finally get justice against HOA bullies who think they're untouchable. Some of these tales will make you angry, others will make you laugh, and some might even inspire you to stand up against the Karens in your own life. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about how everyday people fight back against outrageous HOA abuse, then here's what you can do. Like this video right now to show that HOA bullies can't win. Subscribe to the channel, HOA Karen Stories, so you never miss the next crazy tale of justice and revenge. Comment below. Tell us what you would have done if you were in my shoes. Would you have revealed to Karen right away that you were her landlord? Or would you have let her embarrass herself a little longer? I'd love to hear your take. And finally, share this video with someone who needs a laugh or a little reminder that karma always comes around. At the end of the day, these aren't just stories, they're lessons. And together, we're building a community that knows how to handle HOA Karens the right way, with patience, power, and the truth. So hit that subscribe button, join the family, and get ready, because the next story might just be even crazier than this one. This is HOA Karen Stories, where justice always finds its way home.